All right, hello everyone. This is week one recorded video here, and I'll go ahead and jump right into it. Here is our agenda for this video. So like I said, I'm going to analyze the readings a bit for us, the ones that we are reading for essay number one. So the globalization readings, page 175 through 190. I'll review MLA format a little bit more per request. I see that some we've been wondering a bit more about the specifics regarding MLA citations, especially in text and end of text, which is the works cited. And then I'll also go through chapter one a little bit. It's not a big chapter, and a lot of the content of chapter one you've discussed in previous classes before. Just a couple of things I'll go over for us when we look at chapter one together. So this is assuming that you do have the textbook with you. If you don't, I did send out the pictures of pages 174 through 190, and there are the links to that in the announcement on Canvas. You can also find it in the files section of Canvas. All right, so to begin, just reminders about informative writing. This is also known as expository writing. And just like we said on Monday, this does not include personal opinions or biases. Okay, this is not about what you think about globalization, what your experiences are with globalization. We are just looking at these 8 articles from these 8 groups of authors and what they have to say about globalization, the pros and the cons. So that means informative writing, just like the name suggests, you're providing information. It mainly answers questions and provides factual information, right? Facts. So you are reporting the information. Your conclusions in your essays should focus on inspiring your readers. This is common for all kinds of conclusions for any type of writing. And you should really consider providing predictions, advice, and suggestions, like we said. So that means more if language for predictions and should language for advice and suggestions. Remember to make sure that your conclusions, your advice and suggestions and predictions are all based on the information that you chose to include in your body paragraphs. Okay, so that's because of cohesion. Otherwise, it's going to feel a little weird, right? If you're suggesting some sort of future or right some sort of solution for some problem that you didn't even talk about in your essay. Okay, so reading. Yes, so like we said, this class is kind of a half writing, half reading class. So a couple of reading skills here, especially for all of these non-fiction articles, right? Non-fiction. Reading, identifying the main idea. Find the introduction paragraph, which is usually the first paragraph. Locate a thesis statement, which is usually somewhere in the introduction, most commonly at the end of the introduction paragraph, because think about your own academic essays. It's kind of the same thing. You have your introduction paragraph, and then you end with your thesis. So for some of these nonfiction articles, it'll typically be somewhere in the introduction as well. Make sure you read all the topic sentences and more so really understand the meaning of the topic sentences. And just like the thesis, these are generally the first sentence of each paragraph. And really, really look for repeated words, phrases, and ideas, especially in the conclusion paragraph, right? Because that would probably be the main purpose or main point that the author is trying to make. If they repeat some word or phrase throughout the entire essay, throughout the entire article, and again, especially in the conclusion, right? They really want to remind you of some key element. So when you're looking at these paragraphs and you're reading each paragraph, you've also noticed in the pictures I shared with you, my textbook with my articles, it looks like I am underlining and circling certain key words and phrases, right, from each paragraph. Because what I'm doing is I'm kind of reverse engineering an outline. And that's our last bullet point, right? Practice reverse engineering an outline. Think about your essays. When you make an essay, when you develop, right, and you plan an essay, you make bullet points or you have Roman numerals, right? And you really plan each paragraph and you have these bullet points just as notes to remind you what the main thing is, right? You want to talk about in each paragraph. It's kind of the same thing. When you're reading, you're trying to find what you what you can imagine that the author's bullet points looked like. Because yes, for grammar, we just have to make complete sentences, so it makes grammatical sense, of course, right? But we can still look for those key words and phrases. So practice reverse engineering and outline. That is my best advice for reading nonfiction articles, especially just because nonfiction is generally a little bit more structured than fictional readings like novels or even poetry. And you can imagine how different poetry and its structure is compared to an academic essay like we're writing. All right, so let's analyze the readings a little bit, look at them together. On page 175, remember this is the introduction to the theme, the introduction to globalization, how we apply globalization to different aspects of the world. So in some examples would be like economic transformations, cultural transformations. So really make sure you understand 175 so that you can define globalization for your readers, probably in your introduction for your essays. On the next page, 176, our first article here is Spiritual Perspectives on Globalization. All right, so if you see on the screen here, what I've provided for you are bullet points to really consider the main messages from each article and making sure you understand. So right now, for this first article, we have economically, culturally, and individually. So clearly, this article aims to define and apply globalization in an economic manner, a cultural manner, and then an individual manner. Right? So what is globalization when we apply it to the economy? Right? What is globalization when we apply it to culture? What is globalization when we apply it to our individual lives at the individual scale? You can think about using that somehow maybe to this information somehow to set up maybe the pros and cons in your essays, or if you notice any pros and cons here. Right? But yes, this one, because if you see the top of page 176, it says framing articles. What is globalization? So you can see that these first two articles are more about defining globalization. So again, these two articles might be better used to help you introduce the pros and cons, right? Perhaps in your body paragraphs. And then we end the Spiritual Perspectives on Globalization article with kind of the quote unquote truth of globalization. Has it been around, maybe longer than we realize? Okay, so take a look at that last paragraph, especially of the first article. Okay, next article. World publics welcome global trade, but not immigration. So if you notice here, make sure you see that the titles of the articles are in italics, right? But for MLA format, when we cite these articles, we need to follow MLA format. That means article titles are not italics, which I'll mention. I'll try to remind us a little bit later in this video when we talk about MLA format. But what I'm trying to point out here is in the book, at least, whenever you see these italics titles, that's the actual title of the article, not to be confused with the section titles. So you see at the bottom of 177, there's it says costs and benefits of globalization, also bolded, right? But that's not in italics. So yeah, that's just a section title for the same article. So it's still the same article, World Publics Welcome. All right, we'll start this article with enthusiasm for economic globalization is waning, so that means it's declining. Think about why, right? Try to understand why. It explains in that second paragraph there. Globalization is one of several social and economic forces that are reshaping the world. Again, right, this is from the what is globalization section. So this is just to give us an even better understanding of how globalization has been affecting the world, and applying the definition of globalization, right, to understand how it's been affecting us. Costs and benefits of capitalism and globalization. Well, there's going to be some pros and cons of basically any economic system. And capitalism And you may need to look up capitalism a little bit more if you're unfamiliar with the definition. But capitalism, right, and globalization, they kind of go hand in hand. So especially business, international business, it makes a lot of sense for capitalism to thrive along with globalization. So there are some thoughts there, some opinions, right? So you look at that section to see what people think about that. And then immigration concerns and their effects, right? Immigration fears, that's the next section here. Why are people concerned about immigration? Really think to yourself, what is the relationship between immigration and globalization as described in this section here on page 178. And then finally, there's a kind of a reminder that there is a strong relationship between a country's religiosity and its economic status, right? Especially that last paragraph there. Why? Right, take a look at that paragraph. What's the difference when there's a poor nation versus a wealthier nation, and then how much religion is in the world? Sorry, in that country, and why? Right? Why is there a relationship there, and what's causing that relationship, perhaps? All right, then we move on to the next of the three major sections, which is globalization and culture. So now, of course, right, we're going to be talking about how globalization and culture may affect each other. Our first article here is globalization and local culture. So you can guess from the article title, right? It's about how globalization, this really big picture phenomenon, this thing that's happening, is affecting the very small areas, right? Local culture. So yeah, I've already highlighted, underlined, and circled some important things in the readings. So you can, again, take a look at my pictures of the readings to see what that looks like. There's been an increase in international trade in cultural products. Just keep in mind that products don't have to be physical things. It can also be ideas we talked about. So it could be like music, fashion, right? Even like movies, media, music, this kind of stuff. And this is definitely true when you think back to what about like Hollywood movies, right? Like kind of American movies, American fashion, jeans, American companies and brands, Coca-Cola, Starbucks. These are all getting more and more popular across the world. So this is this international trade of these cultural products. And just the brand, even the brand name, and Apple phones, right? And Tesla cars, like these are getting popular in other countries too. So again, we're not talking about just the actual product, but what about the brand name and maybe the style, like fashion, right? And then there's a really interesting word here, homogenization. So HOMO, right, homo, is this root or prefix that means same. So when we have homogenization, Asian is sort of like this process. There's this process of making world culture the same, just like the things I talked about earlier, right? Like jeans, right? And Coca-Cola and what like rock and roll music and all these things that you might think of like very, very American. Well, it might spread and it becomes a new process, what this article is calling the Americanization of traditions and foods. Think about holidays as well. So now, Halloween, Thanksgiving, or all these kind of traditions and holidays are spreading to other countries. Now, of course, we're not saying America is the only country that can do this, right? A lot of other countries also export cultural products. So what I mean is every country is able to do this, right? Every culture is able to do this to spread their culture to other cultures. And then there's a really good example that kind of illustrates all this. And this is also studied in social science, like anthropology, sociology, right? You will also see this. This is called McDonaldization. So very similar to the other two words we said that also end in zation. McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's in America, you know exactly what to do. You walk in, you look at the menu, you order. Well, nowadays maybe you order from the machine, but you order, right, and then you wait for your number. You pick up your food, sit down, eat it, and then throw your food in the trash. And there you go. Drive through, even easier, right? You just drive up, order, go to the first window, pay, go to the second window, get your food, drive off. So what's really interesting is McDonaldization is this um, uh, it's actually a business decision to make all the restaurants kind of the same, so that if you go to McDonald's in a different country, different culture, you still know exactly what to do. And because of this familiarity, what's interesting is you might choose McDonald's when you are in an uncomfortable or unfamiliar place, because McDonald's is still there for you, right? That makes you, you know what to do when you go to any McDonald's. Okay, so this article, of course, more about culture and how it affects the local culture when we're spreading a lot of these, cultural products, and they're becoming more popular in other countries. Next article here, the deadly noodle. Right off the bat, right, the very first section, we're already talking about American cultural imperialism. Is it making the world fat? So this is similar, right, to what we talked about with McDonald's getting popular, fast food getting popular. Cultural imperialism. So imperialism, the idea that we're spreading. We're spreading across the world and taking over somehow. And in this case, we're talking about cultural imperialism. Right? So this American culture is spreading across the world. And then you can see Americanization again on page 181, right? In line 14 on page 181, this Americanization. So this article is really focused more, you can guess, on food, right? Deadly noodle. Talks about junk food, the rise in caloric intake. We're eating more calories in our food. The portion sizes are getting bigger. You may be familiar with the size of soda bottles in America are usually, on average larger, and also more sugar in soda in America. Raw grains and carbohydrates, cooking oil, sugar, and this all leads to rising healthcare costs. So this deadly noodle article, right, especially the last couple paragraphs, page 182, right? No part of the world is immune from empty calories. People in both developed and developing countries are doing less and less physical activity, and that's why it's getting more expensive. Healthcare is getting more expensive, and you can think about multiple factors here. Does this perhaps suggest that it's the type of work that we're doing is also leading to a decrease in our physical activity when we are using technology more? We are sitting at our office desks and doing work for 8 hours a day, just sitting there, instead of farming. Like, is this also part of the issue? So take a look at these articles and see if there's any evidence you can find that would suggest that might be one of the causes. Okay, and then the third article of this globalization and culture section, paths of globalization from the Berbers to Bach. All right, so now we have creation of new culture, gifts from every corner of the world. So think about, by the way, think about if this article, and every article, think about if it has a positive or negative tone, a positive or negative connotation, okay, a positive or negative feeling, based on the words that you see chosen by the author, because just like you are the author, you can choose what words you include in your essay. So you can choose. And so because the author can choose their words, does it seem like the author has a positive or negative attitude or feeling on about this topic, right? Globalization. So if there are gifts from every corner of the world, we already know gift is kind of like a positive word, right? It's a good thing to receive. So think about that. Right? Would this author suggest that globalization is actually good or bad, or maybe somewhere in the middle? But again, maybe talking about gifts from every corner, gifts. There was this Silk Road project, right, and that's on page 183, kind of around line 35, that paragraph. In 1998, I founded the Silk Road Project to study the flow of ideas among the many cultures between the Mediterranean and the Pacific over several thousand years. And then you can see the kind of the results of that Silk Road project. If you're unfamiliar, remember Silk Road, trying to find a passage, faster way to India. And so that was also kind of like one of the earlier patterns of the spread of culture. So I'm sure they called it that, right, and referenced it that. So it's just studying the flow of ideas. So basically the flow of culture because of globalization or through globalization. All right. And then let's see, we also have another bullet point here, reminding us that we can form a bridge into unfamiliar traditions. So again, positive or negative feeling, a bridge. Why would we want to connect to something we don't want, right? So forming a bridge in this case might be a positive thing, especially if there's something unfamiliar, we don't know about it yet. But once we get there, we can learn about it and maybe it'll become a gift. So yeah, this not just this paragraph, this passage, right? This article is definitely leaning towards the positive aspects of globalization. Very optimistic, right? Very positive feeling. Yeah, every time we see something new, we can try to learn from it, and it can become a gift. So forming a bridge into unfamiliar traditions. In that last page, 184, there are clearly 4 priorities of education. What kind of education do we need for this, kind of new type of world, this globalized world? So to summarize, memorable communication, passion-driven education, disciplined imagination, and empathy. That's on page 184. This is a very important page if you're interested in using any of this evidence, perhaps to suggest something or to analyze it further, like kind of the weakness of this viewpoint of globalization, maybe, or even maybe the strength of viewing it this way. But yeah, really take a look at page 184 and those 4 priorities. Okay, so on page 185, we begin the globalization and sustainability section. And just like we said in class, sustainability, we're talking more about the environment, right? Environmentalism, and making sure we're not destroying the planet. Okay, so our first article, if poor get richer, does world see progress? If poor get richer, does the world see progress? There's a lot of information here. There's a lot of numbers, right? A lot of statistics. If you look at my pictures of page 185, yeah, you can see a lot of circles and underlines. Oh, by the way, I should probably mention underlines. When I underline something, usually it means that caught my attention, and sometimes you'll see me go back and upgrade an underline to circles to really remind myself that, oh, that's like kind of a main idea here, right? I'm not saying that my underlines and circles are perfect. Okay, please don't assume that these underlines and circles are perfect. I'm sure I've missed some details. This is just what stood out to me when I was reading. Okay, and this is what we mean by annotating, is interacting with the reading, maybe underlining, right, circling, highlighting. And this is really for you to take notes as you read. It's kind of like using their own words, right, the articles, their own words to take notes, so that you're not spending more time writing your own words or writing the same words. And also in this way, you're making sure that you're using the author's words. And then when you go back, you don't have to read everything again. All you have to read would be the notes, which would be the underlined parts or the circled parts, right, or the highlighted parts. This is why you also see me, I try not to underline entire sentences or paragraphs, right? I don't need that. I just need the key phrases and key words. And this is also a great way to train yourself when you start reading faster, is I'm just looking for those key words and phrases. My brain can fill in the rest, can fill in the gap, right? So let me give you a quick example. Let's say John eat banana. Oh, sorry, that's not a great example. Let me give you a different one. John supermarket banana. Okay, John supermarket banana. What if the real sentence is John went to the supermarket to buy a banana? But if you just see the words John supermarket banana, maybe your brain is already guessing like, oh yeah, maybe he went to a supermarket to buy a banana, right? Because that's what you do at a supermarket, you buy food. And this is what I mean, is you start training yourself to not completely ignore, but just really looking for what we call the content words, right? The words that have real meaning in sentences. Okay, so our first paragraph, our first article here, we have unprecedented consumer appetite. Okay, so unprecedented, never seen before. Consumer appetite. More and more people are buying things. And this is undermining, it's weakening the natural systems, Earth, right? All the natural resources. Half of all consumers are now in developing nations. So take a look at why that's important. That is, I think, page 185, around line 24, line 23, that area. Okay, that's going to be really important. Make sure you understand why. And then troubling indicators, perhaps consumerism can promote technologies to better our environment. And on the next page, we have bullet points near the bottom of this, the end of this article. But one suggestion is, okay, maybe we can't fight consumerism, right? Consumerism, the idea that, or the system of people just buying things. Think about like Amazon, right? Like we're just going to keep buying stuff. Well, sure, maybe we cannot stop that, but can we at least use different technologies, right, to protect or to better our environment as a result, right? And so this reading, this first article here, probably will help you think about, are there ways for globalization and environmentalism to exist together, right? To coexist? Do we have to destroy the world because of globalization? Okay, then the next reading, the environmental benefits of globalization. Benefits. Okay, so then we have, okay, we're promoting capitalism and it's accelerating the process towards eventual collapse. Okay, so I'm sure you're getting some mixed messages, mixed feelings from this article. Does this author support globalization or not? Or is it both? Right? Talking about the pros and cons. Okay, so yeah, this is probably a good article to look at carefully here. There are important indicators of sustainability, and we have this section title in the article, is the American lifestyle unsustainable? Right? Can we even continue this American capitalism style? Measuring sustainability on page 187, you can see air quality, water quality, timber supply, agricultural production, and availability of mineral resources. Right? Those are all really important indicators of sustainability. So make sure to understand that. Then on the next page, page 188, we have rising affluence, wealth, right? People who are wealthy. So there's rising affluence, people are getting richer, and this is an important prerequisite to environmental improvement. So there's actually, right, this article is suggesting something here. It's actually maybe a good thing for certain groups of people to get more wealth, get more money, because maybe then they can spend that money to protect the environment or to improve the environment. Okay, so perhaps, right, that might be one benefit, one environmental benefit of globalization. All right, but look at the reading carefully for the details. It is costly and futile, right, useless, to try to limit human nature, our human tendency, right? It's our natural tendency, our nature to exchange ideas, products, and services. So again, we can't really fight globalization. It's probably just something we want to do instinctively, naturally as humans. So then what can we do though, right, to try to protect the environment? So take a look at that conclusion paragraph. It's going to be very useful. And then our last article here, page 189 and 190, is ethics the missing link? Right? Is ethics simply all we're missing, right? Ethics, doing ethical things, doing kind of like the right thing, the moral thing. Globalization has an unnoticed environmental flaw, abusing local systems. Right? So this idea that with globalization, we're going to other countries, right, spreading our ideas, but we're also literally going to other countries. Think about when any country starts like a factory, right, in other outside countries, maybe because it's cheaper to do so. So then abusing local systems, are we taking advantage of the cheaper labor, the cheaper costs? So if we over exploit, right, we do it too much, we take advantage of something, over exploitation, there's no idea of disrupting others' ways of life. If we just go to another country, we start this factory, we don't realize what we're destroying or taking away from their way of life, or maybe even their culture, their economy, right? Everything, their individual level. Think back to the first article, right? There's economics, there's culture, and there's also the individual level way of living. We are forcing people to treat the environment as a marketplace. We are now using the Earth's resources as commodities, right? We're treating Earth as a supply. So maybe we just need to reframe, or maybe we need to just recalibrate and maybe change the way that we view the Earth and its resources. So maybe that's what this article is suggesting. We are all part of a disintegrated, right? Everything's broken apart, fractured global order, global system. Maybe we just need to really redefine globalization. Okay, so that would be those 8 articles. Like I said, making sure that you understand the main ideas is good, but you want to go deeper and find specific quotes and statistics and evidence to really support your claims. And sorry, not claims, but support what you are saying, right? What you're reporting in your informative essays. Okay, so as you do that, brainstorming and outlining. Gather important or useful quotes and evidence. Review the collection of evidence that you have. Decide on 3 topics or reasons based on evidence, because like we said, this is a 2.5-page essay, not counting the separate works cited page. So probably about 5 paragraphs, right? 3 body paragraphs. So if you have 3 topics or reasons, maybe 2 pros and 1 con, or 2 cons and 1 pro, but make sure you have cons and pros, right? Because the prompt is to talk about the positives and drawbacks. Make sure to reorganize evidence to fit each topic and reason. Then you can finally draft your thesis statement, your topic sentences, and your concluding sentence, which is the first sentence of your conclusion paragraph. So yes, if you come from 273 or other 5-paragraph academic essay classes, we are starting essay number 1 with our very traditional 5-paragraph essay structure. Right? So introduction, 3 body paragraphs, conclusion. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to visit the WRC, the Writing and Reading Center. They have drop-in tutoring available, so you can just drop in anytime. You just visit anytime without an appointment. They also have weekly tutoring if you would like to get matched with someone. Okay. So then let's talk about our MLA in-text citations. Just gonna go over a couple of things, just kind of reminders, general rules. And then if you have more specific questions, yes, please feel free to visit the websites that I link us to. The default citation format, default. So again, we're talking about in-text. This is in your essays, in the essays, right? Not the works cited page. Here's our default citation format, and that looks like this. You're going to put quotation marks around your quote, and you're not going to put a period or comma or anything yet, right? Not yet. You notice there is a space, then the parentheses, last name of the author, page number of the article, or in our case of the book, close that parentheses, and then finally, you see at the very, very, very end, then we have our period outside everything. So a very, very common mistake is to have a period here and also a period here. You see that? Right? We don't want the period before the citation. This is our citation. This is the parenthetical citation. We don't want a period because a period ends the sentence. We want the period at the very end outside because we have to assume that our parenthetical citation, right? The citation is now part of the sentence. It's part of the sentence. So make sure you have 1 period at the very end after the citation. Okay, so you might have a quote, cats have 4 legs, right? Here is our quotation mark, cats have 4 legs. That's the end of the quote. So I'm going to close quotation mark, space, and then parentheses, Smith, last name, space, page number 66, close parentheses, period. Okay, and that would be how I have a quote and an in-text citation. All right, so here, between the quotation marks, that's my quote. And then here, between the parentheses, that's what we call the in-text citation. Make sure to have in-text citations for all of your quotes and paraphrases, right? That's very important. Otherwise, your teachers might think that you're plagiarizing, even if you're not trying to plagiarize, even if it's an accident, right? This is why we have to make sure we have citations. Better to be safe then sorry. So if you think you need a citation, if you don't know if you need one, you should probably use one. You should probably have one. Okay. And then the next part, there's no need to include the last name in the citation if last name or full name is already used in your sentence. So this is what we mean. According to John Smith, cats have 4 legs. All right, you already introduced the author, first name and last name. So what we mean is at the end, right, in the citation, in-text citation, you don't need to include the last name, right? No need to include the last name anymore. In the citation, right, which again, that's the default, right? The default is to use the last name and page number. There's no need because you already have the last name in the actual text, in the actual sentence of your essay. Remember, we said the first time you mention an author, it's a good idea to introduce that author by first name and last name. Okay, so if the first time you're using somebody's evidence, maybe it'll look more like this, right? According to first name, last name, quote, and then just the page number. Then after that, if you're going to, refer to them again, just using last name is okay. Okay, so that probably looks like up here again, right? Maybe just using the last name is okay. All right, so this is all for quotes, right? Quotes. This section is for quotes, but it's pretty much the same if you want to paraphrase. Remember, a paraphrase is just using the information that you find and putting it into your own words. Okay, so the citation format is going to be the same. The citation rules are going to be the same. The only thing that changes is the quote, and this time, you want to paraphrase instead. So for example, if we read, cats have 4 legs, right? Cats have 4 legs. How can we paraphrase that? How do we put that into our own words? Feline animals are 4-legged, right? And that's what Smith on page 66 says. And so that's why our last name and page number, right? That doesn't change. The period is on the outside. That doesn't change, right? There's no punctuation between the paraphrase and the citation, right? That doesn't change. The only thing that changed was instead of a quote, this time it's a paraphrase. Same rule applies if you're introducing this author for the first time, whether it's a quote or paraphrase, right? It's a good idea to use the first name and last name to introduce them. So that means it's the same thing. No need to include last name, right? If the last name or full name is already used in the text. So one more time, according to John Smith, right? We already introduced the author, John Smith. Then we have our paraphrase, feline animals are 4-legged. Okay, so again, that's why you don't need to include the last name in the citation because you already have the last name in the text in your sentence. All right, so yeah, that's hopefully that clears things up. And then first mention of this author, you should use the full name in your text, right? That's what we just said earlier. So here we have, according to John Folks' study, dreams may express profound aspects of personality. Okay, no punctuation here because we still have the citation. No last name in the citation because we already have the last name in the sentence. And what I mean is your sentence, right? The sentence that you wrote. So we don't need to have the last name, just the page number. And then finally, right, the period is on the outside of everything, just one period. This is actually what we call an integrated quote because you can see this quoted section is actually part of this sentence that you wrote. Dreams may express profound aspects of personality, right? This is a great way to use quotes. Try to embed, or what we call integrate, right? Integrate and embed these quotes into your sentences. You know how we just saw on in the previous page? We have a sentence by itself. Just the beginning and end of the sentence is just all quoted information, right? There's nothing in here that's your own sentence, your own words. That's okay from time to time, but really this, right? This is our goal. We want to start practicing integrating the quotes into our own sentences. That would be a really nice way to use information. All right, so what I really wanted to point out here is that the first mention of this author, you want to use the first and last name. And then second or later mentions of the same author, just the last name, just the last name. So according to folks, right? Or according to some. So then in that case, we're not using the first name anymore. Okay, use the last name only in your text in your sentences. Okay, in your sentences, or you don't even mention. Right? You don't even mention the author anymore, and you just use the last name in the citation, which is the default anyway. Right? We said that is the default. Remember up here, last name, page number. That is the default. So if this was confusing, let me try again. Let me just. If this is the first time you mention this author, use the author's first and last name. If you already mentioned the author in your essay, just the last name is okay, right? Whether that is in the sentence or in the citation. Hopefully that clears that up. Okay, then we have to talk about the works cited. Yes, the works cited is really important. It's a big part of your overall grade for each essay assignment. Start by looking at the MLA format, the template that it's on Canvas. And this is just a snippet, a screenshot of that. On the top right, we already talked about the last name, page number, right? Make sure to double click, change the header, play with that file. Works cited. Always make sure that this is centered and it's always spelled exactly like this. Capital W works with an S, capital C, cited D, right? Always exactly like that, exactly like that. Doesn't matter if you have one work or multiple works, right? Always works cited. So basically don't change that. That's perfect already. All right, then we have the each entry. Okay, these are the entries. So that means this person used 2 sources, or technically 3, just last name, first name. That's just the example I want to show you there. But a couple of things to remember is this needs to be alphabetical order by last name, right? The first letter. So the first letter is B, first letter is G, first letter is L. So it needs to be alphabetical order A to Z when you look at the first letter. Remember, if the first letter is the same, then look at the second letter. And if the second letter is the same, look at the third letter, and so on. What you really want to follow here is down here. You have last name, comma, first name, period. You have quotation mark, article title, period, quotation mark, no italics, right? Look at the article title. It is not italicized. So just because it's italicized, or just because the original article title didn't follow MLA capitalization rules, you still have to. You still have to. For example, take a look at this one. Should college education be free? Right? We have to make sure we capitalize the correct words to follow MLA capitalization rules. Right? And that's also another file available on Canvas. You can take a look at that. Okay, after article title is the magazine or newspaper name, basically the publisher. And this is italicized, and also make sure to follow capitalization rules, right? The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, right? Follow capitalization rules, comma, and then the date that the article was written. Usually it's going to be in this format: the day, the month written out, and the year, and then a period at the end. There are some websites that will automatically create this for you, the works cited format, but they're not perfect. I've noticed some mistakes since it's just computer guessing and just trying to guess things for you. It's really important to learn it so that you can double check and really be careful with your style, because these are kind of easy points, right? As long as you just make sure you don't make any mistakes with the formatting. Now for our book, for our articles, 8 articles, I know that sometimes you don't know what the author is. For example, on page 177, you have Pew Global Attitudes Project, right? So yeah, that would basically be the magazine or newspaper name. Okay, that would be the magazine or newspaper name. If you see something that doesn't seem like a first name, last name, it's probably not a first name, last name. And here's the thing: if you don't have something, for example, oh, I can't find an author name, okay, then you just don't include it. You just begin, right? You just begin with the article title. Or like, oh, I can't find the publisher name, right? Okay, then you just leave it out. Whatever you can't find, you just leave it out. Oh, I can't find a published date. That's okay. Just leave it out. Okay, leave it out. But I want to remind you, if you leave something out, this suddenly, right, this letter A suddenly becomes the first letter, right? This is now the first letter of your entry. Remember, yeah, alphabetical order. If you don't have an author name and A is the first letter now, make sure this goes to the top, right? Okay, and then also, it's already structured this way, the format, but you also notice that there is, it kind of looks like an upside down paragraph. This is what I explained to my classes. Usually we indent the first line and then the other lines are not indented. But in this case, the first line is not indented, but the following lines are indented. Again, it's already like that in the template, the document. So if you just replace the words, it should keep that for you. And then I have one more slide to show you, right? We have the entries in alphabetical order. We have hanging indents. And again, MLA format, of course, needs to be 12-point font Times New Roman, 1-inch margins all around, top, bottom, left, right, double space. And then make sure you have your last name and page number in the header. Not to mention the heading, like we talked about, which is the top left of the first page, which again, this is all in the, it's all in the template document on Canvas. All right, and of course, if you just need more specific feedback or questions, please feel free to visit the WRC, drop in anytime, or feel free to message them. All right, and I think that finally brings us to chapter 1, source work. So chapter 1, source work. Let me go ahead and get this camera ready. I'm just going to go through a little bit of this. You also notice that on Canvas, in the files section, there is a source work answer key. So for all the activities that you do in the book, all the answers are found in the answer key in that file. So if you need to take a look, not if you need to, that's where you take a look for the answers. All right, let's see if this will fit. Great. We've got some more lighting this time. All right, chapter 1, this starts on page 3, building a paper, explore. All right, well, I'm not going to waste your time reading it to you, but make sure to read, chapter 1, like all the sections of all the chapters that we're going to do. Right? And because this reminds us that reading is very important as it relates to writing. How we talked about, if you want to become a better writer, you actually need to read more. So if you want to become a better nonfiction academic writer, you just need to read more nonfiction academic readings. And then in this section, we said that we have a couple bullet points. There's reflecting, there's open reading, there's paraphrasing, there's responding, and there's also summarizing. Okay, so starting on page 4, first one is reflecting. Okay, consider what you know about the theme, and then start writing questions about your topic. This I know it has certain topics. The book has certain topics that it follows. For chapter 1 of source work, let's think about globalization, right? Let's think about our essay number 1, globalization. So reflect. Once you read the page 174, 175, right, you have this idea of what globalization is. Start reflecting. Then open reading, right? Read the articles in the 8 articles, right? And that's the steps. These are the steps, right? So you're reading those articles, and then open reading. Really focus on the ideas that interest you. Highlight the sections, annotate, and you can see what I've done in my my copy of my book, right? I've also done that. Write questions and comments in the margins. This is what, again, most teachers will call annotating, right? Writing questions down. But for me, just my personal style, I like to just put question marks, right? I'll circle something and then just put question mark. It's just a little faster for me. And then skim the article. This is more important when we do like essay number 3. because you don't have a limited supply of articles for essay number 3. You're going to have freedom. You're going to be able to, look for any articles and as many articles. So you don't really want to read every single article. You don't really want to waste time reading every article carefully. So you got to develop the skill of skimming articles. So reading the first and last paragraphs, looking for the subtitles, the section titles, looking for keywords, repeated words, and just trying to get into a general sense of feeling of the article. Is the author more positive or negative about this topic? We'll talk about abstracts later for academic articles. That'll also help you decide which articles to use, right? But we'll talk about that later. Abstracts, they're basically summaries. Okay, we have some activities to do after open reading. So maybe you can copy some sentences that you think are interesting. What do you think they mean and how do they interest you? Basically, how this applies is you're looking at those all those sentences in those 8 articles and thinking about which ones you might want to use in your essay. Okay. All right, now I'm going to skip this. These are just kind of some free writing activities. We're not going to be doing that. Page 6, paraphrasing. All right, when we're describing something, we use different words. Right? When you tell a story, you're going to use your own words. You're not just going to repeat exactly everything that happened, right? So paraphrasing is also important because it shows that we understand what we read. And that's actually what it says right in the middle there, right? Repeating the author's ideas in your own words shows that you truly comprehend or understand the original idea. This is exactly why teachers always ask you, in your own words, what happened? All right, 3 criteria, 3 things for a good paraphrase. The good paraphrase has the same meaning as the original, so please don't distort, don't change the meaning. A good paraphrase is different enough from the original to be considered your own writing. This is very important. Use no more than 4 or 5 words in a row from the original version. Change grammar and vocabulary as much as possible. Think about changing the sentence structure, passive voice, active voice, change back and forth. And there are a lot of other things you can do to paraphrase. And a good paraphrase refers directly to or cites the original source. So of course, don't forget to cite where this information came from, right? You paraphrased something. You didn't just think of this. You saw something. You want to use it in your own words. Make sure to cite, right? Include that in-text citation. Where did you get that? There is an example down here at the page of bottom of page 6. There's the original sentence, and then there are 2 paraphrases. And you notice that it starts with Pinker and then 2010. Right? So definitely make sure to include citations. So I'll let you read that, and you can consider how to use that strategy in your essay number 1. There's a now you try activity on page 7. Okay, so there are 2 for you to try there. And again, you can check your answers in the answer key. 2 good techniques for paraphrasing. So we have this tell a friend and chunking method. All right, so the tell a friend is exactly what it sounds like. Tell a friend. How would you tell a friend? An example I think of is, think about like a movie, a really long movie, right? Sorry, not long, but I mean like a normal movie, like 90 minutes or longer. What about like Lion King? Right? If you're going to tell someone what happens in Lion King, you're not going to take 90 minutes to tell them what happened. You're not going to act out the entire movie. You're just going to tell a friend, right? You're going to summarize. And that's what we do when we paraphrase. We're kind of like summarizing the main points and trying to use our own words. So here's another example at the top of page 8. Notice that the key ideas are the same, but the structure, the grammar is pretty different. Right? And here's another practice section. Now you try on page 8. Okay, feel free, like I said, you can pause, come back, check your answers. Right? So do we really understand what each proverb means? All work and no play make Jack a dull boy. All that glitters is not gold. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Okay. Now another method here is chunking. So chunks, right? Sections. Divide the original reading into these chunks and sections and try to figure out which chunks are important. And then what's really good is on the next page, you can see the example. if the original has certain chunks in a certain order, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can see here. And this is actually from our articles, right? This is the If Poor Get Richer article. Then we can paraphrase each chunk, and then we can write that in order. Or we can even change the chunk order, right? Maybe we can change the order of the chunks after we use our own words to describe each chunk. So you have a lot of kind of like freedom, creativity when it comes to paraphrasing. And that's what we see on the next page here, on page 10. You can even try to change the order of the chunks. Okay, then there's a now you try on page 10. If you still have some questions or trouble with paraphrasing clearly, okay, so that's going to be helpful. We have some more activities to practice paraphrasing, okay, on page 11. So if that will help you, then go ahead and work on that. Okay, but like I said, at this level, right, your teachers, ESL 5, ERIT 1A, we're expecting you to be familiar and comfortable with paraphrasing, summarizing, even citations or MLA citations in text and works cited. So this is really for, if you still have some questions or you need some more practice, then there it is. A lot of practice here also on page 12. Page 12, you can go ahead and look at the answer key to check your answers. Okay, so yeah, we have a lot of activities in this book to help you out. And we got some more. We have some more proverbs on page 13, finding paraphrases and such. But yeah, some of these are group activities, and they ask you to just look up some reading on your own. So yeah, you don't have to do those. All right, page 14, responding to writing. You can see this middle paragraph. Teachers are often interested not only in your understanding, but your reactions to it. Right? So yes, this first one is more of an informative essay. So you're just reporting news, that's okay. But later, essay 2, essay 3, 4, right, we need to respond to our reading as well. So that's going to be more important for essays, the essays after essay 1. 3 characteristics of a response. All right, so this, again, I want to make this very clear. We're not doing this for essay 1. Again, we are not doing this for essay 1. We're not responding to writing in essay 1 because essay 1 is informative, right? We're just providing the information. Again, one more time, this section right here you see on the screen, it's not about essay 1. This is about essays 2, 3, 4, and also 5. Okay, so that's why I'm not really going to spend a lot of time here. I don't want to confuse us. Okay, this again is for essays 2 and later, not for essay 1. Okay, do not respond to the things in essay 1. We're not looking for your opinions. So just wanted to show you it's there, right? It's there, but we're not doing that yet. So we can come back to that. Summarizing, page 19. Okay, summarizing is of course important because if you need to paraphrase something, especially what's the word? Research findings, right? The researchers, the scientists, they do some research and then they have the findings, the results. You don't want to explain every single thing, right? You want to just kind of summarize and paraphrase, right? Like paraphrasing, it says, paraphrase the findings. Okay, so this section is all about how to summarize or create a good summary. Ooh, right there. All right, so 4 criteria for a good summary. A good summary acknowledges the original author, so make sure that we cite, right, the author. Otherwise, it sounds like plagiarism. Only the most important information is included. It's much shorter than the original. Remember the Lion King example, right? If I spend 70 minutes to explain Lion King, that's not really a good summary, right? If the movie is only 90 minutes. So a summary, I recommend probably if you can aim for 10% of the original length, that's probably a good size, a good summary. But remember, it's quality, not quantity. If you can do a good job summarizing using as few words as possible, that is actually the ultimate goal, right? Not just the percentage, but can you summarize without losing any meaning, summarize using fewest words possible. A good summary paraphrases information taken from the writing, because it's important to prove that you didn't just summarize this on your own. You are using what the author wrote first, and then you're paraphrasing and summarizing. That's why citations are important. All right, so there is a reading that starts on page 20 here. This is another example of my annotation system. So underlining and circling. And what you see here is, if you actually follow through this and read everything, and then you take a look at what I chose to underline and circle. Let's see right there. Okay. What you'll notice is that a lot of the information usually comes from the beginning and the end of each paragraph. There, right? And that's because usually we have our topic sentences and concluding sentences. So I'm just gonna, slide this reading slowly so you can pause if you need to. You can read through this if you need to. Okay. A little bit more on the next page. Right there. Right. So here's an example of a one sentence summary. Right? That's kind of the goal. Anytime you read something, doesn't matter how long you read. I mean, sorry, how long the article is. This is your goal. Can you, in one sentence, summarize the purpose of this entire reading? If you can, you understood the reading, right? And that is your goal. That's your first goal. Then, are you able to also summarize the paragraphs? So you see, instead of a 2-page essay or article, now we just have a 1-paragraph summary. And some of these topics are the same, right? So it's kind of like the chunking. We reverse engineered an outline from the reading, and then we can put together those bullet points into one summary. Okay. 3 techniques for identifying main ideas for a summary. So like we said, underline the main, key ideas. Okay, you can read through these tips here. Technique number 2, divide and describe. So this is kind of like chunking, honestly. Technique number 3, a summary grid. So sometimes it's useful to organize it like this, right? Oh, what was paragraph 1 about? What was paragraph 2 and 3 about? And so forth. So this is why, again, my recommendation, my own style is I like using what is already written in the article and just kind of like circling and underlining. If maybe it helps to number the paragraphs, just anything to help you really see what is the purpose of each paragraph, because then when you put those purposes together, you can usually identify the purpose of the entire article, the entire reading, right? Once you see all the individual sections put together. All right, steps for writing a summary. Make sure to introduce the article title and the author's name. So think about doing that for whenever you introduce an author, right? And you cite your either the quote or the paraphrase in your essay number 1. Right? It's a good idea to have the author's full name, remember, full name. We have a couple examples here. Combining a summary and a response. Again, since we're not doing a response for essay number 1, I'm going to skip this section. And so that means that's it. Okay, that was the end of chapter 1. All right, so it's basically, let me go back. It's basically the summarizing and paraphrasing, right, tips that we get from chapter 1. And then if you feel like you still need some additional practice, then we do have activities in that section, and you can go ahead and look at the answer key, to go over the answers to the activities in section chapter 1. All right, so that is basically it. So the homework is the same. Make sure to finish quiz number 1 on Canvas by 11:59 p.m. Sunday. Again, multiple choice, 10 minutes, no late quizzes. You get 1 attempt. You also get 1 attempt per question, right? You cannot go back to a question. and answers are revealed after the due date. And then, of course, keep working on essay number 1 and to submit, right? Turn in essay number 1 on Canvas by 11:59 p.m. Sunday. And please feel free to visit the WRC if you have any questions. They're mostly Monday through Friday. So if you do choose to visit them, make sure to plan accordingly. And then I will see you all in the Zoom meeting again on Monday at our regular time at 6:30 p.m. Okay, and then yes, I do have office hours at 5:30 on Monday, so please, yeah, let me know if you plan to come, so I can also plan us accordingly, because I can also slot us for different times. But yeah, there's that. All right, so feel free to message me on Canvas or email me if you have any questions. If not, I hope this video was helpful, and yeah, I'll see you all on Monday. All right, take care.